So we're losing the nice comment about you being hanged.
That was always nice. That was never going to make the end.
Fair enough. Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us here at our third letter from the Old West, where we talk about our new role-playing game, Tales of the Old West. I'm Dave.
And I'm Matthew, and we're talking to you from the wonderful, vaguely Old Western setting of the Ilarp Centre near Hook in Hampshire, who've kindly let us film here today to get a lot of interviews out.
Indeed. Today we're going to talk to you about something that's very dear to our hearts, and that's player characters and the relationships that the player characters have amongst themselves, but also with some key NPCs.
And I guess we should start off with, how do you build a character?
Yeah.
Well, if you've played any sort of Year Zero engine game before, you know that you will be building your character out of attributes and abilities or skills and talents. And like a lot of those games, because we're using Year Zero engine as core, you'll get a number of points to spend on those. You're getting a different number depending on how old you want to be. So the younger you are, you get fewer points to spend on skills, but more points to spend on attributes. And as you get older, you get fewer points to spend on attributes and more points to spend on abilities. And of course, importantly, more talents to bring to the table too.
But as an older person, you're a little bit weaker and maybe not quite so quick as the other younger gals and boys who are around you. The important thing to note is in that system, you can create any character you please. We have included in the core book a number of archetypes to give you some guide rails if you wanted some inspiration about how to do that. And those archetypes will offer you suggestions for talents and offer you ideas for the character's faith and the character's big dream. This is inspiration. You don't have to follow those, but if one of those speaks to you when you're creating a character, then great, go with it. But you then need to decide how many livings you want to have had in your character creation. As Matthew said, a young character would have one living. They will come into the game at the age of about 20, give or take a couple of years, but they will have less life experience, but they won't be so beaten up. You can then choose to have a second or a third living if you wanted your character to be older and more experienced, wiser, a bit more grizzled, but then that comes with the downside of you lose some attributes, but you gain more skills and you gain some extra talents.
I notice you've segued here into the second part of the life path generation, which we ought to say the life path generator is going to be a stretch goal. So the attributes don't talk about livings. That you can again choose how long in the archetype you can choose whether you're young, a greenhorn as it were, or an old timer, or somewhere in between. But yeah, Dave started talking then about the life path generation, which will be a stretch goal in the Kickstarter campaign, but it'll be an added chapter that gives you inspiration to help you create characters that come from that real mixing pot that the Old West was. So it starts off with where you were born, and you could literally be born anywhere in the world. Obviously, there's a slightly higher chance of you being born, broadly speaking, in the eastern states of the United States, as it were, but you could come from anywhere. And then it gives you a little bit of detail about how you grew up. There's a table for each of those regions around the world where you can roll a table and you can see the sort of background you might have had, where you were born, what your parents might have done, your basic attributes, and maybe one or two skills as well. Then we come to livings, Dave.
Which I've already explained. So you then get to choose how many livings you want your brand new character to go through, accepting the penalties and taking the bonuses that you'll get that when they come into the game to start. But within all of that, you might gain other things. So your character might gain, principally, or a key thing, a compadre. Now, compadres are special non-player characters that we've included in Tales of the Old West. They are old friends or maybe family members of the player character. So when you get one as a player character, you decide where they came from, what their relationship to you is, why they're still with you. you then get to control that character, who is, on the whole, a loyal, friendly, steadfast companion. However, the GM can also control your compadre. So if you don't treat them well enough, or if they've got a flaw that means they might get drunk and cause trouble, then the GM can decide that that compadre is making a bit of trouble come into your life. So it's a double-edged sword. They can help you out, but also the GM can use them to drive stories and plot hooks.
Like many things that we've been talking about in this sequence of videos, like Faith, like Your Big Dream, compadres are story hooks, effectively.
Absolutely.
That will help you round the table, GM and players, build a story together of the sort of complexity that you see in things like Deadwood, 1883 and the like. So, you know, for example, if we take Deadwood, Calamity Jane may actually not be a player character. She might well be a compadre of
Wild Bill.
Wild Bill.
Absolutely. Yeah, indeed. Or you know, Dan Doherty could well be a compadre of Al Swearingen. So it works really nicely. You can have a small number of compadres. You can't amass hundreds, and you know, some compadres will come and go. There are other things we'll talk about in other videos that we have in the game, particularly around campaign play, that will bring up potentially storylines and plot hooks specifically towards your compadres, which again allows the GM to create a story, bringing trouble for you, bringing opportunity for you as well, but based on your compadre. In the campaign that we're playing at the moment, my character Brody Anaheim, he has a compadre who's called Grandpa Willie. He's an old guy. He's been with Brody for years. However, he seems to have got himself in trouble. I sent him off on a task a little while ago, and apparently, having come back through a town, he ended up murdering someone. Not great, but so now I've got to try and clear his name. I'm convinced as a character that he is innocent, but this came out of that campaign material that we talked about, and it's created a whole line of...
Brody Anaheim is convinced you're innocent. It means you should hang, actually.
Gulp.
Because Brody Anaheim is none too innocent himself.
He's not a nice guy, except to his friends. He's nice to his friends.
Yeah.
But it demonstrates how the compadre is a great element and a great asset for the player, but also it can bring trouble and scenario ideas.
And I think it can be worth pointing out your compadre might also turn out to be a backup character as well. As a young man, my character Marion Freeman doesn't have a compadre. None of the roles gave him one, but to one of the other player characters at our table, which you can hear on our Actual Play podcast, did have a compadre who he decided would be his younger brother Jimmy. And in an early adventure, that player character was shot through the head and died. And luckily, Jimmy was there to take his place.
Yeah.
Now looking, hopefully, his big dream is to be everything that his older brother would have wanted him to be.
Yeah.
So again, create story easily without having to think about it too much. That's what I love about this game, Dave.
Yeah, that's one of the things we've really focused on, is trying to bring out the player characters' backgrounds to give lots of insight, lots of interesting behavior and material to drive the player, but also to give the GM plenty of opportunities to create scenarios that are really focused on what the player cares about. The player motivation around getting involved in these stories, you know, there's so much of it that comes out of the game as we've created it. We're loving playing it. I'm loving GMing it as well. I really hope that you'll have a look at it and you'll love it too.
And if you want to have a look at it, and this is the first time you've come across one of these videos, you don't know anything at all about it, come to our website at www.effectpublishing, effect with a K, all one word, .com. And there you can sign up for our newsletter, get told about when new videos like this are getting released, and also you can go to drive-through and straight download a free copy of our quick draw rules, which come with an adventure, and none of the character generation stuff that we've been talking about today actually, but some 5 pre-generated characters that help you get a handle on the game.
So yeah, go and give it a look, and thank you very much for watching. See you next time.
Thank you, partner.